Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Dior, and this is Langrisser Global Apex Season 9. Alright, again, earliest time slot. I'm going up against Dante Belmont here. Has a mostly balanced box here. 2 tanks, 4 healers, a mixture of AoE, assassin, long-range magic, and even some cavalry. So it's honestly the most preferable box for me because it gives me more control over what sort of opponent what I need to go up against, essentially. As always, he does have a wet ham, so I banned that first. My opponent goes straight for my Sherry, which is normal. Went ahead, took out, and end up grabbing Hilda immediately. So this is going to make it a bit rougher on my assassins already, because she can negate crits. But I went ahead and got rid of Sherry and Lucretia. Sherry because of her long range, and just kind of hard to deal with. And then Lucretia because she also has long range and she can self-res. So grab my Hilda. They start going for my long range and assassins. So kind of mirroring me here. Went ahead and took Rose and Seal. So they have both Reincarnation and Empire faction buff if they need it. Also, they pretty much negate all of any potential debuffs I could possibly do at this point. So at this point, I went ahead and just banned their AoE and their debuffs. So at this point, I don't really need to worry about much in the form of magic damage besides Karyura. And for the most part, I don't really need to worry about much of anything, to be honest, besides Bernhardt. There's some combos here that could still be a bit annoying, but honestly, this actually gave me a bit of flexibility. I was a little torn on who to pick next. Obviously, Zerida could have been an interesting pick because obviously she's an assassin. But I went ahead and just went straight for Tensei Jessica that gets some additional teleport support. And with that, they go ahead and ban my Zerida and my Helena. Helena I was had zero attention in picking. Zerida was something I was considering, but probably would not have picked over Tsubame at this point. They take Kaira, so they do have an assassin, a magic one. At this point, I went ahead and got rid of Tiaris because I did not want to deal with any attack blessing or her extra mobility 3C nonsense. And Bernhardt is also just very, very annoying to deal with. His AoE can, of course, negate heals and do a lot of fixed damage, and he also has the ability to faction buff and provide mobility. He's also just rather tanky, so he's not very easy to assassinate. So I grabbed a Tsubame at this point. Looking at the box, they don't have much in the form of AoE. Their only AoEs is Florentia and Helena here. Technically, also, you can potentially get some AoE using the Blossom stuff from Christian here. So they start banning my healers at this point, and they take Helena. So I had a choice of 2 healers. Again, I was a little bit torn. Obviously, Sissy White does have their exclusive helmet now, which definitely gives some additional options. But I think the big thing is since they took Helena, I wanted some more consistent abilities to cleanse and heal. Sissy White doesn't really have much for cleansing at this point. She has area heal, and that's about it. At this point, I got rid of Christiane because I did not want to deal with the Wombo combo, using Christiane and Helena and just spamming the passive AoE nonsense, combined with the fixed damage from her weapon, which she most certainly has. And then, of course, we have... I did not want to deal with Sword Soul or any of that nonsense that can negate passive guard and all that. So that just leaves us 2 additional healers, both of them that can act again. I went ahead and took the chorus, mainly just to negate terrain and all that nonsense. It also gave me a little bit of flexibility, just in case I had the option of taking Pyrotes, because Pyrotes is Dark Faction, and I can also bring, Lycoris as Dark Faction. Alright, takes Florentia, which makes sense, because she has plenty of faction buffs there. And then I take Pyrotes. Taking Christiane probably would not have helped me in this particular fight. I mean, it would have just been a tank push at that point. And if I lost Tsubame, that would have been pretty much game over. So yeah, I think taking Pyrotes was my better option at this point. So a few things to note about my opponent. My opponent only has a 5-star, either 4 or 5-star Florentia here, because she only has 4 battle strategies. Came with mass attack, probably the buff Kyura, and then winning strategy and 3C there. Rosensteel did bring her faction buff, so she can faction buff everybody except for Kyura because she's not Empire. Hilda did not bring her faction buff, instead she brought a secondary guard with dominating formation. So pretty straightforward there. And then Helena went Angels and standard kit with Chivalry, and then Kyura is standard kit with Faceless, full offense. Also, both the healers did bring Fighting Monks. For those who don't know what Fighting Monks do, they increase healing effect, and they have increased defense. And if the hero's class is holy, it gets 30% attack. It also, despite having 2 range, it actually does not suffer melee damage penalty. So pretty useful, though not very good offensively, simply because both these are mages, and so they don't get the actual attack buff. With that being said, standard Light of Genesis, I brought Strength in, mainly for Pyrotests. I did not bring a faction buff on the chorus, I went just pure heals and support. This is just to give me more opportunities to get buffs up and remove terrain. To be honest, it's overkill, especially since she does have access to a faction buff from Hilda. It's honestly not necessary. I could have probably maybe afforded to bring some other, maybe attack skill or something, but still, it's good to play it safe. Also, having these buffs does mean it does ensure that I can get some sort of defensive buff on Pyrotests if I want. Speaking of Pyrotests, I stuck with Force Night Elves, not that it matters that much. Standard kit with 3C, Quick Step, and Sly Stride. Hilda, standard kit, Crystal Molders with War Goddess. Against this opponent, I could have probably gone without Crystal Molders, but either way it would have been okay. Tsubame here, Faceless, standard kit with favoring Quick Step and 3C. And that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. Obviously the biggest issues are Kyura's assassination and long range, and then of course Helena can kind of run around everywhere. Helena can definitely bypass Tsubame's stealth by using a combination of moving nearby and then doing Chivalry, and then popping it using the passive AoE, and then finishing her off, so I have to be careful about things like that. So my opponent went ahead and just guarded in place. So even though Florentia does not have access to an act again, at least for this turn, the biggest issue is Rush. Rush on Kyura would give her 2 extra mobility, which will put her all the way to here, and then she would be able to attack at 3 range at least. And if she happens to have a staff, she can be even 4 range. So there's a lot of coverage here with Kyura. The main thing I need to do is either make my opponent stall long enough for me to get in range and kill, or bait their Kyura out to kill one of my units so I can finish it off. And then at that point, as long as I have at least 1 assassin, I should be able to have the advantage. Alright, faction buff. Hits everybody except for Kyura. The main thing I'm keeping an eye on right now is the Helena, and once the Helena move, I was kind of safe to move. So the key thing here, the steps I needed to count here is this initial step, which goes all the way to here, and then the passive AoE, or sorry, the exclusive armor will put terrain around like this, and then the passive AoE will also hit in a similar ring fashion. So as long as I'm outside this range here, I should be okay. Even if she did Chivalry and move up next to her, that would break the stealth, but she wouldn't be able to attack that round. So with that in mind, Kyura moved away. I did get a Breeze proc, so I got greedy here. I had a few choices. I could have pushed forward with Tsubame, teleported her a little bit closer to get in range of maybe Kyura. I don't think I would have been able to get kill on Helena. She's just reasonably tanky. I know her exclusive armor also gives damage reduction if she's standing in her own terrain, so there's a good chance I might not have been able to kill her. I haven't had too much experimentation against her. I know when I'm trying to kill her by herself, it's generally pretty difficult. It would have been maybe possible just using the benefits of Silent Wing and being near 2 additional opponents, but it's not something I was going to be willing to test out, because if Tsubame fails to kill Helena, it would have been game over, because then I wouldn't be able to. Kairo would then just take out Pierrotess in this case. But in any case, I did not teleport Tsubame forward. Instead, I moved Pierrotess forward. Pierrotess did also proc her own breeze. So with this, she can get to here and then snipe whoever she wants. I don't have any bonuses against flying, so more than likely I would have tried to go after Kaira or gone after Rosen CL. This does put me in range, of course, potentially of Kaira, if she happens to have the staff. But there's not really much I can do about that. But like I said, I kind of just... The goal was to either get in range of Kaira and get the kill, or try to bait her out. The reason why I didn't teleport forward, though, with Tsubame is, even if I got the kill on Kaira, and it would have reapplied stealth, it would have been within Helena's kill range. She would have just moved next to Tsubame, Chivalried, and then just killed her. And I need to keep Tsubame alive, at least. I'd rather have Tsubame alive than Pierrotess at this point. Anyway, got my act again with Tensei Jessica, and applied a attack buff. So with the Tenyu headdress, I actually managed to get the magic defense buff, so despite not having a faction buff, I do have defense, magic defense, and attack buffs all active on her right now. So pretty helpful. Alright, Florentia went ahead and buffed everyone's attack with mass attack, and then went ahead and gave rush. So with this, Kaira is in range. She got 2 additional movements, which is more than enough to get in range of pretty much anything here. So yeah, you can see she can pretty much attack anything she wants. I did put both Light of Genesis and Lycoris and Forest to hopefully minimize the chances of her getting killed. But we'll see how that goes. So yeah, 4 range, so she did have the staff. Negated the crit. But unfortunately... Yeah, more than enough. She had well over 7k damage overhead. So, teleported away. At this point, I could go and just kill her with Tsubame by using Quick Step. With this one, I did a kind of a ballsy move, because I wanted to keep Tsubame alive, because it's the only way I'm going to be able to bypass Hilda. And even with her crit negation, I'm pretty confident that I can kill both Rosenseal and Florentia. Both of them have mixed troops, which means Twilight Star will hit them, will fix damage them no matter what. So as long as they don't have that fancy helmet that refreshes their health after fixed damage, I should be able to either get kills on them. The only thing that's going to slow me down, of course, is the cooldown. So to make that happen, I have to be at least this range to kill Kaira. And then I get to move 2 steps after I get killed with Killing Machine. So that could get me to here. So the only way I'll be able to guard, get in guard range here is if I were to move Hilda up. But if I move Hilda up to be within guard range of Tsubame, when she gets into the forest, it's going to put me out of range of Lighted Genesis. And as you recall, Helena can get to here, apply terrain here, which means she can go here, here, and then 1, 2, 3 to here to get to Lighted Genesis. More than likely she doesn't have Twilight Star, so I would have at least some defense from the forest and sorceresses, but I'm not sure I would be able to survive a full-on 3C attack from that. But I do it anyway. So I push forward with Hilda. So my opponent kind of had the choice of either going straight for Helena and just getting the potentially free kill on Lighted Genesis. Now this would isolate Helena, which would be a bit dangerous. Or she can try to just move in Hilda to try to protect Kaira. And my opponent decided to move up. So with that, I went ahead, since the moment that happened, I was good to go. I was like, alright, well, I'll go ahead and move Light of Genesis first so I can take my sweet time with Tsubame, because I can get the kill whenever I want. Granted, it doesn't look like my opponent has any fixed damage immunity. It's possible, but that would mean she has an SR accessory, which is unlikely. Mainly, the reason why I say it would work is because Kyra is both Faceless and Kyra are assassins, so that would still negate fixed damage even from a Twilight Star. But I don't. There's not a high chance that she would have that particular SR item. So even with the crit negation, Tsubame could do plenty of damage. Her attack's actually rather high. Anyway, so with that, I moved up. And Helena still hasn't moved in yet. At this point, Helena can't actually get a free hit on Tsubame anymore. So, or not Tsubame, but Light of Genesis. Now, a cheeky thing she can do is she could go to here and then run through the formation and just block Lycoris and keep her from actually reaching Hilda's guard range. But that's a heavily cheeky move that is probably not going to pay out since I have teleport. In any case, at this point, I'm good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and move in. I could have moved into melee range at this point, because I do have the extreme magic bow. And also would have gotten an additional tick of silent wing, or whatever it's called. But as you can see, I didn't need it. So I went ahead and moved out. So Chivalry, this is going to break my stealth. Didn't proc the fixed damage that time. Did get thorns here. So pretty good damage. She is in her own terrain, so she is reducing everything. And hits us all of that. Bloodthirsty proc, but only on Hilda. Even if it procced on the casters, it wouldn't have mattered. Yeah, as you can see, it procced there. And you can see I got healed to full already. So let's... Yeah, so... Lowest HP was 4652 there, so... And she's popped her 3C at this point, so... Yeah, chances... She can't get killed with the cheeky fixed damage. If she had maybe Christiane's additional Blossom, that probably would have been enough. But in this case, I can confirm that I can survive her AoE nonsense. So, and as you can see, I just move in, mass heal, get rid of some of that terrain, get rid of all those debuffs. I have Goddess here as an accessory, so I got rid of all the debuffs. Resounding Might. Only hits one target. This was just, so the purpose of this was mainly just to heal Helena, to try to get her HP up as much as possible, since obviously she's isolated. That being said, I wouldn't have been able to get killed with Tsubame. But obviously, losing HP still helped. Alright. So, go ahead and just hit Helena anyway. Yeah, kill all the angels, but then my opponent's just going to retreat back there and then heal up passively. So, at this point, I'm taking the center. The center, of course, is these 6 tiles there. So the biggest danger of taking the center play here is the fact that I only have 1 guard ability on Hilda, so there's going to be a round where I don't have 2 range guard, so I have to take that into account while dealing with a highly mobile Helena. And I want to also, even along with maintaining guard, I also want to maintain pressure here and make sure I limit my opponent's ability to actually close in. More than likely, I wouldn't be able to keep them out anyway, but it puts pressure on the opponent, so, you know, a little bit of psychology there. In any case, went ahead and moved in, did some terrain. Obviously, at this point, she's just... my opponent's doing a few things. One is just constantly trying to soften me up, but also all this damage is adding up. Obviously, I'm losing in damage, so if it ever comes to a damage race, I would lose the combat. but all I'm doing right now is passing turns so I can refresh buffs and essentially refresh killing a machine, which will be ready in a couple of rounds. So I tried to apply Strengthen to see if I can refresh my attack buff. It didn't work. It wouldn't overlap the faction buff, so my faction buff wore off, and so I just lost everything. So Thorns versus this. It's magic versus my things, so almost did as much damage to herself that she did to me. Holy Flash doesn't work because Hilda's immune to mobility negation, or mobility reducing. Sudden Strike. This was a bit premature. I think a better idea with Florentia would have been the wait, and until that Crystal Blossom was ready to go, because then you can do back-to-back AOEs and possibly do some damage. But with this, it's just not a big deal. I'm just gonna mass heal, and you're just gonna sit there and not do anything. So yeah, Chivalry. Puts Betraying out. Do a bunch of debuffs, do some damage. Move up, put some more terrain down, some more debuffs. Poke me some more. The damage is ramping up a bit, and then Dominating Formation is going to do more AoE and prevent act agains. Now, something to note, the mistake I did earlier with the Strengthen and not refreshing my attack buff also applied to the 3C. So the Dominating Formation did not overlap the or refresh the guard buff. So her guard. So right now she actually has no guard. It's something I didn't actually notice until I did this. So I did this mainly just to get some passive healing up. With that. And then at this point my opponent does a 3C to get the guard back up. It wouldn't have mattered either way, even if I attacked with Tsubame. Tsubame is so debuffed and doesn't have any buffs active right now that it wouldn't have worked. Anyway, so at this point, my Silent Ring has refreshed, and so I was able to go ahead and reapply Stealth. And my opponent's already popped Chivalry, so there's actually no way for my opponent to directly attack Tsubame. So with that, I was like, alright, I'll just get out of range and see what happens. So went ahead and went into the trees. So at this point, Helena, the only way Helena would be able to do any sort of damage to Tsubame would be to move next to her, and then that would just be her wasting a turn. And at this point, my opponent actually needs Helena actually needs healing at this point. Rosenseal spent this round reapplying her faction buff. So I went ahead and just used this opportunity to go ahead and just get some terrain up. I'm actually kind of okay with seeding terrain at this point because I actually need to get in position with Hilda because her guard's going to be wearing off, and I need to reapply faction buff first anyway. Florentia did do some healing with the 1-cost stratagem that heals only troops. Also something to note, since she went so early on the act again and popping Chivalry, she only has 1 turn left of her Chivalry attack buff, and it's 30%, so it doesn't get overwritten by faction buff. So the faction buff that Rosenseal applied means that Helena only has 1 turn of attack buff, and after that she's just got normal attack. So at this point I went ahead and just shifted down. I don't really care if they take the middle now, because I'm going to be able to kill at least one of their units. So I could have gone after Helena. Like I said, I was a bit nervous about trying that. Instead, I just go straight for their Rosenseal. Now, you may think that my opponent has 2 healers, but that's not really what they have. They have Rosenseal, who has healing and faction buff, and now that's gone. So they're going to eventually run out of buffs. Florentia heals is only her 3C, which is still on cooldown, and then she can heal troops only using stratagems. And if she's popping stratagems to heal only troops, she can't use. She won't be able to use rush, and she won't be able to use her quick strike or whatever it's called, the one that gives her an act again. So with that, I can kind of just take control here. and I was able to move back into guard range. I wasn't concerned about reapplying stealth at this point. So this time it did pretty decent damage. In fact, I think this Florentine actually has pretty good int. Because it definitely wasn't from troops. Yeah, she actually has 1423 int. That's insane. Alright, but in any case, my opponent only has mass attack. Everything else I don't really need to worry about. I just reapplied my guard and allowed my crystal molders just to refresh some healing. Alright. So I actually did more damage to her than she did to me. At this point I went ahead and healed up. As you can see, I'm already catching up in damage just from guarding. Yeah, at this point I'm going up there on the damage. I didn't actually see how much damage I was doing until much. I don't think you actually see the damage values until a little bit later. So I went ahead and teleported, just get formation, take more slots, and at this point I went ahead and just did a regular attack against Hilda. Hilda's troops were mostly gone, so it didn't reflect that much damage. So I got a little cheeky in this upcoming part. As you can see, there's Hilda and Crystal Molders. She can only heal troops. So this is the situation. She did get her defense buff. Or sorry, no, she got a damage reduction buff, didn't she? Yeah. But she does have Broken Arrow, which means she can actually fight at ranged against physical ranged opponents. And I decided to see if my first strike would actually be enough here. But Thorns made things a bit rough and a bit dangerous. And I didn't even do enough to get a kill. Thankfully, most of the damage was to troops, so I still had 6k, well, I had 6k HP and it's now up to nearly 8k. My opponent does have an attack buff active right now, but she only has our 3C, no Chivalry, so it's only going to be potentially 2 AoEs. But it doesn't matter. Even with the 3C, her angels were immediately killed, and then it was all spears at that point, just going straight into Helena, and Helena of course only has she's cavalry, so type advantage. And there you go. So I guess some neat things to point out is my Hilda did more damage than my Tensei Jessica. I was definitely playing it a bit safe with Tensei Jessica because I was concerned about Thorns, which my opponent did have. And then Crystal Molders, of course, reflect magic damage. That combination and the potential that Helena can move in and then hit me with a bunch of AoE and fixed damage could definitely put Tensei Jessica in danger. And even though she was kind of mostly just kind of there to teleport people around, just her presence there just is enough to deter my opponent from trying anything, even with angels as the troop choice. Obviously, Pyrrhotess was mostly bait. If my opponent hadn't killed Pyrrhotess would have killed Kyra. So it was, and even if my opponent had moved Kyra away, my Pyrrhotess would have killed the Rosen CL instead. So my opponent didn't really have much of a choice besides to kill the Pyrrhotess, in which case, at that point, I kind of had control over the match. I was definitely a bit concerned about the how much damage Helena was going to do, but as you can see, I was able to kind of just out-damage it. And the extra terrain, even though she was constantly overriding my terrain, the times when I did have the healing terrain from Lycoris definitely helped, because it always ensured that I got a little bit of health back, even if I accidentally hurt myself with like Thorns or some sort of, dumb decision like physically attacking Hilda with the Tsubame. But yeah, it was a fun fight. The last few rounds were a bit nerve-wracking because I was on the 15-minute time limit, or not 15-minute, 15-second time limit the whole time. So if I had let the AI act for me, it would have been a bit bad, to say the least. But you can see how much damage their Helena did. It's that AoE and stuff was pretty rough, and she tanked the most damage because I focused purely. Well, she She did most of the damage to herself, but any times when I had an opportunity to attack her, I tried to attack her, just to force my opponent to act. If my opponent maybe had additional healers, it might have worked, but that's assuming they had an answer for all the assassins I brought, which, as you can see, they didn't. Once I took care of Kyura, there was no way in confirming that Helena couldn't actually kill anybody. Pretty much sealed their fate. At that point, it was just me waiting turns until I had a chance to kill the rest of the things. Anyway, that was a bit rambly, but I apologize. I tend to be rambly at 3 a.m. Anyway, so that's it. There's going to be one more week of this. I'm probably just going to do only one match and see how it plays out. Obviously, my win percentage isn't the best. It's floating around what it usually is. But I'll be pretty busy with work and doing the whole guild expedition nonsense again. So that's it for me. I am the Depressed Hero. This was Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 9. I'll see you guys later.